Right. Is it going again? Right, it's back up and running. Back with Paul Malin for part 4. Here we go. You moved to Yamaha at the end of '92 after many years, obviously, riding with Kawasaki. How did this move come about, and how long did it take you to feel at home racing a different manufacturer bike? And in hindsight, do you feel the move was beneficial or detrimental to your career?
Oh, it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah.
Basically, the '92 season didn't start great. I wanted to stay 500. Kawasaki wanted to go 250. Yeah. That decision was made sort of fairly late on. And then...
so when you had the Fox gear and all that, yeah.
And then I would say that at the start of '92, the first... I'd done one race since the close of '91 British Championship season. So we finished GP, we did Motocross Nations. There would have been a couple of 125, 250 rounds, maybe a British Championship round. We would have been done by October. I remember Percy wanted me to do the Supercross there, and the guy who was trying to get me to do it, Pat Boulon, a French photographer, is no longer with us, but he said, "Oh yeah, we need you in Paris. We need you in Paris." I was like, "Cool, yeah." So we agreed a deal, and I said to Alec, "I'm going to Paris," and he went, "No, you're not." I went, "Well, I've already done the deal," and he went, "Okay." Well, I said, "So I just need a 250," and then I didn't get a 250 till about 3 days before the event, which was about 6 weeks later. And so he didn't want me to do it. And I was pushing. And eventually I got a 250, but it was a stock 250. Didn't even have my own suspension. Didn't have a chance to test. There was a guy, Clive Boosie, who was a collector of vintage bikes in Northamptonshire. I don't think he is anymore. I think he's offloaded them all. But he had a track around his place. And that was the only riding I got to do before I went to Bercy. It was outdoor. It wasn't even a Supercross track, and it was wet. So I just had literally no preparation ahead of it. So I did that race 2 nights or 3 nights, maybe then I think it was. 250 went back, and I was expecting to go 500 the following year. So the 250 went back. I didn't ride all of December, and I think second week of January, maybe. Third week of January. By now, I know I'm going 250. And they said, "Oh, we're going to get out on the bike for the first time next week." And I asked if it was a factory bike, and they said yes. And I got there, and it was a stocker, not even been run in. And I remembered it was at Chippenham Wild Tracks.
Oh, yeah.
Cambridgeshire way.
Sandy, it's a bit sandy, yeah.
The track wasn't even that bumpy. It wasn't even that bumpy. And I just... I was running the bike in, and Alec, I came in after about 15 minutes. Alec said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just running it in." "You don't need to fucking run it in, Ace." You know what I mean? I was like, "Well, it's cold. It's about 4 degrees. I'm not just going to go 2 laps and then, it'll be all right." I was like, "Nah." So I just took my time, did another sort of run-in session. And then towards the end of that, I just started just to sort of, just pick up a little bit of speed. I wasn't even 70%. And there was a long left turn through a bank, and there was a hole not even that big. And I just caught that back end, expected to soak it up, and it just flung me down the track, knocked myself out, dislocated my shoulder, cracked my ball joint, and then missed 6 weeks of the pre-season.
Yeah.
To the point where the bike was developed by somebody else, a magazine test rider, and somebody that was a completely different style to me. And so when I got on it, and it was the first time I rode it, was literally Canada Heights British Championship round. And I think I crashed in the second corner twice, both times on my shoulder. And it was when it was 3 races, and they brought in this stupid rule that if you didn't finish in the top 24 at the first round overall, you needed to qualify at the next round. One of those. You don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah.
So the last race, I think I started 3rd or 4th, and I think I dropped down to about 8th. I'd got no skin on my hands. My hands were completely blistered. I'd literally not ridden in 2 months because I didn't do anything in December. The one time I rode in January, I'd, wrecked. And this is now beginning of March. So just not ridden. And so the Inquisition was, at the end of the day, what the F, just in attack mode the whole time. And I said, well, clearly, I haven't ridden, I haven't been on the bike. I'm not fit. I've just I'm trying to play catch. So then Alec just said, yeah, cool. Then we need to go ride tomorrow. We need to ride every day this week to play catch up. And I went, dude, have you seen my hands? So literally rode 3 or 4 times that week, made things worse, So by the time we got to the first GP, I was already being sort of like pummeled into the ground by my own team. To the point where late on in the season, Jamie was on Kawasaki's that year. He should have been my teammate, but they had their own disputes with Alec and the factory even before the season began. So they went their own route on Kawasaki's, but were able to have their own engines, develop their own bikes, run whatever they wanted, pro circuit if they wanted, shower suspension instead of Kayaba, and so it was all, they had complete free reign to do what they wanted, and they got a motorcycle that they wanted. But mid-season, I still wasn't performing, and I was still being sort of like, attacked from all angles, and it was me, not the bike at all. And then basically they just went, right. I showed up at one British Championship round, and Jamie's all of a sudden on one of my factory bikes. And then the following week, I'm on his bikes, completely stock. And I think this lasted for about 4 weeks. It was British Championship in Devon, Torrington.
Yeah.
German GP. Not sure where that was. Bilstein rings a bell. Not sure. Fox Hills GP, 92, and Ireland, Killinchie.
Oh, yeah.
The GP in Fox Hills in 92, I think I got a third in the first race. I think it was 50.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was there.
That was probably the best bike that I had all year, and it was a Bitzer. It was basically I don't even know what it was. I remember going down to collect a bike because I'd blown a shock on my practice bike in the week. And I went to collect it, and my mechanic at the time, he went, I said, joking, I just said, what am I riding this week? And he went, I think you should see the boss. So I literally went into the office, and Alec was sat there, and I said, so what am I riding this week? And he couldn't even tell me. And I think I had a stock frame. I think I had a factory top, a stock bottom, a friggin' left fork was different to the right fork, a shock from 1948. It was just complete mishmash of a bike. I just got on and rode it. I had a gearbox problem in the last race, I know that, but I had a third and a fifth. And then we go to Ireland the following week, and I'm back on full factory stuff again. Jamie's back on his, I think actually that was the last weekend Jamie was on the factory bike, and the thing seized on him while he was leading the race. And it was like the infamous helmet over the trees moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, there was a lot of bad feeling that year within the team and all the rest of it, and blah blah blah.
Must have played with your head a bit, must it? Must play with your head, not know what's going on.
It was a mess. It was a mess. I was injured at the beginning. Actually, I spent a lot of the time injured. I injured my shoulder at the beginning of the year. I remember going to the British Grand Prix, the 500 Grand Prix, the 250. There was a support class, and I was just going to ride my 250 there. And Alec went, no, you need to ride the 500 from last year, the SR. I went, dude, I've not ridden it in more than a year. And we went and rode it one time before Hawkstone, and just didn't feel the same bike at the time. Just didn't feel right. It didn't. And anyway, the thing seized on the. I'd done one lap, got to the top of the hill, started the second lap, and the thing seized on me. And it's quite funny actually, because I remember coasting down the hill on, close to the tape on the left as you look up, on the right coming down, and I could hear Alec on the tannoy, the circuit announcer, saying, how good it is to have me on the 500. The crowd want me on the 500, and this, that, and the other, and it's going to be spectacular. And bike seized at the top of the hill. I'm freewheeling down back into the paddock, and basically I parked it in the thing. The mechanic came over. What's up? And I went, don't know, seized, solid. And he went, okay. And then he basically said to me, yeah, we've cleaned it up for this, for the race. I went, you've cleaned it up. You've not even. Oh, it's just a scorch on the piston, you're all right, or whatever. I don't know what his exact terminology was, and I just ended up going, no, I'd rather take the 250 out. So I took the 250 out, and it was a 250 that hadn't been serviced, that they just put in the back of the van as a parts horse, and they just wanted to rob parts off of it if we needed them. And I remember there was just at the top of the start straight, the old sort of Hawkstone, alongside the start straight, You got the left-hander up through the trees, and then it kind of went right, and then up, and then down, back onto the first turn. And there was a couple of deep ruts there, and as I came into there, everything just bottomed out, ripped my knee off my bike, and it was knee and ankle ligaments at the same time, stretched. But it was agony at the time, and that was it, my day done. So there was more time off the bike, and then, should have gone to America, Japan GPs, wasn't, they never plane tickets for me to go there. It was just a mess in the end. And then eventually, they told me I could negotiate with other teams. And then when I did, they told me I wasn't free to negotiate and whatever else. And it was just, dude, I think I did a deal.
Jesus.
Yamaha was about 2 days before the final round of the British Championship, and I hadn't ridden all this time. I was leading, I think I was 2 or 3 points off of Robbie in the 125 Championship. I was third maybe in the 250. I had a chance of winning both. But they decided they didn't want me anywhere near their bikes and whatever else. So that was it. So I didn't. But I did everything I could for them in terms of I went to schoolboy races, did trophies and things like that. I was still doing my obligations, still turning up at British Championship rounds, even though the truck wasn't there. Even though there might not have been anybody there, I was just doing my bit, batting off questions and whatever else.
So it ended not very well at all.
So, it was a pretty crappy end to 12 years.
That's poor, wasn't it? Not good.
But that was it. That was then. Everybody moved on after that.
Cool.
But the other was at the right time.
96 was arguably your best year in the World Championship racing, only missing the podium twice all season. Is that right? Pretty
much, yeah. I think I had missed the podium first round, the last round. Maybe. You also secured your maiden British Championship that year too.
The question is, what clicked in 96 that maybe didn't in other years? Were you fitter, mentally stronger, experienced, or a better bike?
I don't know, a bit of everything really. I remember going to Australia. I remember going to Australia in December at the end of 95, and 2 laps from the end there was like a little left-hander, a little rut, and it was in the Perth Oval football stadium. So it was an outdoor supercross. And it was left, small little double, probably waist height, not even, probably just slightly higher than waist height. And then you land into the right, down past the main grandstand for a couple of jumps, finish line, double, whatever. And late on in the evening, moisture's coming out of the ground. My front was in the rut, the back was just on top, and it was only a little shallow rut. And I was just getting on the gas, and the thing just started to break. But because the jump was right there in the corner, high-sided me, knocked me into the second one. I broke ribs, collarbone, lung, gash in my elbow here from the foot peg. Anyway, I got home, and I wasn't, because it was December and it was like really cold, and I had to have the lung reinflated and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. It was collapsed lung. I flew home and the lung collapsed, actually. So I was in hospital for a week, getting that sort. And I was off. I didn't actually ride or train until early January. And the season started in March. But I'd already got, we'd already been down to France at the beginning of the year, or Spain or wherever, I don't know, we were testing. And then, just the bike we had was great. Full Rinaldi spec. The suspension was, awesome. And even though I'd not been able to train, I think my sort of memory, sort of muscle was right where it needed to be and that kind of thing. So I was able to sort of pick up relatively quickly. And I think the confidence in the bike also allowed me to pick myself up that little bit extra, going into the pre-season races, Hawkstone, British Championship, whatever. Yeah. And then, that was it. And then I think first GP was in Italy, near Venice. And I remember Max Bartolini won both races that day. I can't remember what I did in the first race, but I know in the second race I had a rear wheel collapse. And the same weekend, same race, it was Tortelli lost a front brake cable or something like that. His caliper came off. When he came in, they cut the caliper off and da-da-da. So we both had
I remember that.
A first round. But then he was back on the pipe in Switzerland, I think, and I got on the podium in Switzerland. And that was it. I'm like, cool, we're back. I think I tied third in Spain, but most of the GPs, we were on the podium always fighting. Me, Tortelli, Vial, occasionally Bob Moore. Those races are good. There were some hot rounds there as well that year, but we got through it.
Cool. You stopped racing in 2000. Was this a tough decision to make, and how difficult was it adapting from being a competitive racer, which you'd obviously done from a very, very young age, to being the other side of the fence at the race weekends?
It was a difficult decision because I wasn't ready to stop. I'd crashed at the beginning of 2000 at Canada Heights, Yep. I tried to ride Australia 2 weeks later. That didn't work out. I got back. I left Australia on the Saturday afternoon. I landed in Manchester Monday morning. Sunday night or Monday morning. Yeah, Sunday morning, I think it was, because of the time difference. Yep. And then I ended up seeing my physio in Huddersfield. Initially, he'd done some contacts, done some chasing around for me, and said, the guy that you're already seeing is the guy that needs to do the surgery for you.
Okay.
So Monday I called him, John Webb, I believe his name was. Wednesday I had the scan. Friday I had the surgery. Sunday I came out of hospital. And then it was just, the information I got was first 3 weeks, keep your back straight, don't bend at the back. Do no exercise, 6 weeks light training, 12 weeks, you'd be back on a bike. And I was like, okay, cool. Got to about 10 weeks. And I remember getting out of bed. I'd had a fantastic training day the day before, and I got out of bed and I couldn't move. My whole body had gone back in spasm. I managed to get myself down the stairs, into the car, drove, the other side of Nottingham to the place where I was going for physio and where the surgeon was. Yeah. And the same thing as when I crashed at Canada Heights. I wanted to walk in. The pain was so intense and the spasm in my back was so great. And the curve of the spine was just all over the place, that every step I took was getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And if you can imagine the burn of arm pump, I had that in every single muscle. Everything was just doing that, back from my shoulder blades down. And I literally, my hips were at that angle. And eventually I just had to get on the floor in the main walkway, 50 meters away from the physio area, because I couldn't walk anymore. The pain was so intense. But because I'd gone down onto my knees and then laid over and just had a moment, people hadn't seen that happen. It was the same thing as the chick at Canada Heights. It was like, oh, you've fallen, you've had a fall. Are you, trying to... I was like, dude, just give me some space. My body's just, I'm on my way to physio. I just need the space. Oh, we can get you a wheelchair. I was like, dude, just give me 30 seconds. Just let everything kind of, retract. And then I'll be okay, and I did. I walked to physio, and my physio, Louise, she walked in with me, and she was like, dude, you're a glutton for punishment, eh? And I was like, yeah. But then that was, they scanned me again, and they saw an infection in the disc, in one of the discs, and said that should have showed up before I was discharged 10 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But because it was so late on, they just said, well, now we need to take a biopsy and we'll, see what it is, the infection, and then we know which antibiotics to treat you with, But my surgeon wasn't there to do it, so he offered up somebody else. And 3 times he went in. He was obviously going in with a needle and looking on a monitor here, and three times my legs pretty much went numb. And it was because he'd caught a nerve. And it was like, okay, I've just caught your nerve. But I was literally like from the waist down, couldn't feel anything 3 times. And he came out with a needle. And then the 4th time he went in and got a tissue sample, and that was it, that was scary, because obviously you've got a choice of ending your career how you want, or ending it on a surgeon's table like that. Wasn't what I'd envisaged, but fortunately that went okay. But it was another 8 or 10 weeks before the infection sort of grew to the point that we knew what it was and how to treat it, whatever else. But then I was getting it in, sort of from Honda at that point as well. You obviously don't want to ride. You're doing what you can to not ride. And I'm like, dude, fuck off. Seriously, you know what I mean? Just, you don't know. You have no clue what I'm going through right now. And then in the end, when I did start training, day one, I thought, okay, let's see where we're at. I could cycle. and I like running. I used to like running as part of my training thing.
Okay.
I remember sort of running on the treadmill, doing about 2 or 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden, my back started tightening up, my stride got shorter and stuff like that. I was like, okay, stop here. I'll revisit that in a month's time. Do everything else I can. But I was going down sort of dead ends. I was trying to do this, trying to do that, trying to strengthen here, and then there was a flare up there, and then there was always a knock-on effect, whatever. So I was just kind of going around in circles, and then eventually I got to a point, I think it was probably in November. I still couldn't run. I still couldn't do a lot of things that I wanted to do. I didn't feel like I was making progress in terms of getting myself back into shape and up to, I certainly wasn't any closer to getting on a bike. And this was November, and the crash happened end of Feb or beginning of March.
It's nearly a year already, yeah.
So, and I remember I'd got an appointment booked already with the surgeon for sort of late December, probably just before Christmas. And I thought, well, I'll keep that appointment anyway. And in the meantime, I'd made my decision to stop. And that came because I was literally hand on the front door, getting ready to go to the gym. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time, and based on conversations that I'd had with the surgeon, in terms of, fusion and things like that, was going to be another year out and whatever else. And I just thought, I'm going to be 29 in 2 months. That's 30. I'm making a comeback. It's not the right time to be having 2 years out. And
2 years is a long time, yeah.
Trying to sort of find your way again, kind of thing. And then maybe your own team for 1 or 2 years, maybe, I don't know. So I just, the reason for stopping was just because of, one, and again, this goes back to an interview that I did probably during 95 or 96, somebody asking me, oh, you're obviously not getting any younger, but you're having a fantastic year. And when will you stop? When will you know when to stop? Yeah, I'm like, well, dude, you'll just know. It's like things will dictate. You're either, you either don't want to do the training anymore, or you're injured, or you got no motivation, whatever, or you're just not getting the results anymore. Yeah. And my mindset when I sort of went from sort of opening the door to closing the door was, I've just asked myself a question, what am I doing? What's the point? And there's no motivation to go training because I can't train in the way that I want to.
To be at the level,
the level I want to, which means then on the bike, I'm probably not going to be at the level that I want to be, need to be, Then it comes down to enjoyment. I don't, certainly in England, even if at GP level, certainly in England, I want to be still winning championships.
Yeah.
At the very least, top 3, and if I can't do that, then I'm not enjoying it. And if I'm not enjoying it, I'm just making up the numbers. And if, and it all comes around, injured, lack of motivation, the level that you want to be at, and all of those things. And there was relief when I actually made that decision, because it just been going on far too long, it's a difficult decision. It was because, like I said, I didn't expect it to end then. Didn't expect it to end that way.
Yeah. Shame. If you hadn't broke a bone in your wrist during the 95 season, do you believe the momentum you were building after claiming the overall victory at Fox Hills, which was brilliant, by the way, you could have gone on to win the title? You were 5th in the standings halfway through the season, but ended up 11th. You've got here. That's right.
Yeah, actually, it's a skateboard injury. I actually broke it in my final year in schoolboy in '88.
Right, so it's a muscular injury.
I was practicing at Crick, Northampton, a local MCA track that Robbie always used to go to, Herring, and we used to go over there occasionally, and we were play riding at the end, and I just misjudged something and just looped out, and my landing was long downhill, and I put my left hand out, and didn't feel anything break, but when I picked myself up, my whole hand was immediately aching, and I could clench a fist, but I couldn't move it too cleverly. You know what I mean? So I thought, okay.
Very strict injury.
And then it started getting worse that night. And my mum said, come on, we'll take you to living in Leicester then. So Leicester Royal Infirmary. And basically the guy looked at it. He said, it might be a scaphoid. Might be. Not sure, because these things don't always show up. Come back in 10 days. Well, in 8 days, I think we'd got might have been a BSMA final actually in Wales, in Knighton.
Was it?
Or a semi-final maybe. Knighton, Wales, on the side of the hill. I know it was muddy, and I remember I could clench, and I could go down with my wrist. I could go out to my left, but I can't come in to the right. It was locked there, and it wouldn't go back. So I thought, well, I'm going to need that movement, in some instances. So I adapted a new riding style with my left hand slightly forward on the bar to allow for any movement here if I needed it. And I got through the weekend, got through the year, no problem. I thought, okay, maybe it wasn't broke, maybe. So I never went and got it looked at to even know if it was a scaphoid. So then the New Year's Day race, Hawkstone, beginning of '89, where the sort of start straight is now, I guess they go up and the left hand and then they jump into the trees. Had a crash off of there and slammed the hand into the ground. Went and had it looked at in Derby, and the guy went, "You had any problems with it before?" Actually, no, the chick wanted to put me in cast straight away, but I couldn't put my wrist back because of the previous. It still wouldn't go back, and it still wouldn't go in, inwards that way. And so basically, she was like, "Oh, well, I don't know if it's broken or not, but I'm going to put it in a cast anyway." I was like, "Dude, why put it in a cast if you don't know?" "Well, I've got to because it will stabilize it." I'm like, "Yeah, but if it's not broke, it doesn't need stabilizing." Anyway, put me in a cast a week. But I came out of cast after seeing a specialist because he'd said, because I was doing mock exams and I was in a big clunky cast. I'm left-handed and it was my left wrist. And so I couldn't write. And he took the cast off and he said, "Have you ever had a problem with the wrist before?" I said, "Yeah, but I haven't broke it." And he said, "Yeah, you have. See this line here? That's an old fracture that's reopened and it's a scaphoid and it never healed." So he said, "If you want to, carry on riding, see how you feel. If not, give us a shout." So that was that. Carried on, rode through all of '89, and then the beginning of '90, first GP I think was Falcons Ward. Qualified on the Saturday, and then Sunday morning in the time practice session, you come down the first hill, under the crossing bridge, and then up the next hill. It was a little bit more of an elevation on there back then, not much, it was just a bit steeper. Got like that, got slung off the back down the track and smashed it again. So I thought, right, I need to go see this. And I think I went and saw Mr. Hadfield, who was the FIM doctor, but he was based in Chertsey in London area. And he said, "Right, you've got 4 options," because I could, like I say, I could clench, I could go down, I could go out, but I couldn't come in, I couldn't go up. And he said, "Option number 1, we can screw it together. Problem there is if you have another one of those impact injuries, the bone is so small there that the metalwork in there will just cause the bone to shatter. Option number 2, we can take it out and put in a plastic insert that mimics a scaphoid. Option number 3, we can take out the scaphoid and leave it out. Or option number 4, we leave it as it is." He said, "With the surgery options, I can guarantee your movement, but I can't guarantee your grip." I went, "I'll leave it because I've got grip and I can't ride without grip." So I left it. So basically since '88, I've ridden my whole career with it, and it's still broken. The scaphoid's still broken, still opened up. It never healed. I still got restricted movement with it, the same as when I first did it. And when I won at Fox Hills in '95, and then had that just a back marker again, cross line on me on a jump, and I got pitched and I didn't land on the downside. I landed on the flat, but it was on a downhill, so I cleared the downhill that I landed and just jarred it. I knew straight away, but a couple hours later I could ride the second race. It was just one of those. But so the first one, I was charging through the field. I got up to about 4th, and I was within a couple of seconds of the top 3-4 guys. I think it might have been 5th. And not even riding over myself, just everything was clicking. And then I had that DNF'd. And then I rode the second race, and there's a long high-speed right-hander there, and I had a front flat. And massive washout, and just cartwheeled for about a week. And didn't finish that one either. And obviously front flat, so I couldn't. So that was the double DNF there. But when I re-injured that was already a 6-7-year-old injury that had never healed. That I, at that time, still couldn't get a good surgeon to, do anything sort of. I could probably go see somebody now and they can probably fix it all, but no good now.
Bloody hell, so you rode your whole career for it. Bloody hell, I didn't know that. I've got a question here. I've got a couple more left. If you were able to ride just one motocross track for the rest of your life, which track would it be and why?
I would probably say Nantwich.
Yeah,
Nantwich, great track.
Yeah.
I just like the flow of it. I'd ridden there as a schoolboy from, with Northwest as a kid. We didn't do the adults track. The adults track at the start used to go left and down. And obviously when we raced there later on, it was obviously safer to go right. But always enjoyed riding there. In fact, the last time I raced there was probably 99, and it was muddy, and I won all 3 races and all but won the championship, the penultimate round that day. So that was, and one of those races I was in an intense battle with Rob Herring and Paul Cooper. Sort of got by Coops, got by Rob eventually. All of us eating crap off of each other's rear wheels, like the whole moto. But me and Coops were in a battle for the championship. So it was important that I beat him.
Yeah.
I won all 3 races that day. I think I did that at Ling that year as well, earlier on in the year. So, yeah, that was good track. My favourite Nations track was probably Vimmerby in Sweden, the first one I did in 1990. And funnily enough, I can remember the start where it went and left, and then there was a few times left and right. I can't remember the whole of the track. I just remember I enjoyed being there and how deep how rough it got, and how relaxed I was when I was riding there. I think I had a gearbox. I was stuck in gear in one of the races, in the first races I was coming through, that halted my progress. And like I say, my last race, I was in race 1 and 3 that day. I just took the front while I was leading, and dude, I was just in my own world. It was just felt so easy. Maybe just a lapse in concentration, just hold the front in a turn and just jumping up into a corner. But anyway, we got some revenge a few years later.
Yeah, definitely. We all remember that one. Is there any out of the current crop of young guys coming through this country, the UK? Do you believe there's anyone out there that's got it in them to do really well? Any names?
I hope Conrad.
Yeah.
Conrad, just because he's been touted for a few years and it's just not happened for him. And then obviously Ben. I mean, Ben only lives across the way from me here. Like less than a mile away from me. But obviously it's his last year in MX2, but that's not to say that he can't win it this year, and it's not to say that he can't win in MXGP. He's a big lad. He's tall. He's the weight is going to be a problem for him to try and keep that weight down. So I think the way that he rides, and I think he's stylish. I think he could be a surprise in MXGP. A lot of it is also going to be on what team he can get on next year when he goes up, and what equipment he gets. And obviously there aren't a lot of those rides available, but then there are a lot of contracts up for grabs at the end of this year. So things might fall into place.
Yeah, a lot of movement and all that.
Will be.
Okay, cool.
But I think those two, just off the top of my head at the moment, obviously a little bit lower down, you've got probably Joel Ritzy. He's still riding Europeans at the moment. But after that, I don't really see anybody. I only say that, there might be guys out there, but there aren't enough English or British riders riding either in GPs at the moment, or even at least in Europeans, coming through the system, 125, 250. And until you get that, they need to be riding at that level week in, week out to elevate their own game.
Yeah, get their experience.
And when they get there, they get noticed. And when they get noticed, they get on teams. When they get on teams, they get equipment. When they get equipment, they're in amongst a whole new world of experience and teammates and knowledge and whatever else. And the support system is radically, radically different to trying to do it on your own, But I would say those two, and then Ben, Conrad. But they, Ben, and they work hard. You know, they do work hard. You know, Conrad works hard. Ben works hard.
I see Sword is helping Conrad, isn't he?
Yeah, Conrad and Bass Farson is.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So he kind of joined the party kind of midway through last year, really. So that's good. And you know, speaking to Bass, loves working with him. You know, so that's cool.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, cool. Got one little funny one just to finish off with.
Cool.
During your time racing on Boost Yamaha, how many Boost chocolate bars did you consume during the course of the season?
Is that a fattest question? Yeah, I look like I'm still eating them. To be honest, we never. I mean, the Boost thing.
I love a Boost.
The Boost thing. The Boost deal was actually quite disappointing because you know, that was all geared for road race. You know, I think we were sold as the poor relation at the time, you know, like, let's go to Cadbury's Boost. This is what we're going to offer you, British Superbike Championship, you know, and it was Neil Hodgson, Jamie Whittam, or Neil Hodgson, Chris Walker, or whatever, you know, and Boost everywhere and all the rest of it. And as a sweetener, we've also got a motocross team where we can have that truck all stickered up and on the shirt and whatever else. I don't think our deal was directly affected. I don't think if we did, we saw very little in terms of extra money coming in. But it all looked good from the outside. And I think the only time I saw Boosts were at the British Grand Prix when they were just kind of in the hospitality that Dixon set up. Never saw any before or since.
Didn't you?
You know, so only for that's what I remember. I might be wrong, but that was it. And I liked Boost as well. So you know,
nice.
If they're only left over, I might have took them and stuck them in a car on the way home. They probably didn't make it to the next race, though. That's the problem.
Any? Actually, I did want to say one thank you before I went as well. I want to say thanks to your wife Nikki as well. She's been very helpful, helping me out with a few things, and obviously sorting out you as well.
Yeah. No, she's
thanks to her.
No, she's good at her job, and
she's really cool.
A nice little liaison officer to get this sorted and stuff like that.
She's brilliant. Thanks for that. Thank her for me. And any shout outs or anything you want to make or anything like that before we go?
To be honest, it's just all I'd say is you know, throughout my racing career, if you know, hopefully people enjoyed sort of seeing me race, enjoyed sort of some of those moments the way that I did, you know, those championships that I won, the GPs that I won or races that I won or whatever, Motocross of Nations, being a part of that whole journey. Obviously there's a lot of, you know, I've ridden for teams and sponsors, and, you know, there's obviously a lot of people I've met along the way, and, you know, I still speak to a lot of those people now and whatever. So it's a nice little community, the off-road community. But, you know, to anybody that did help out along the way, obviously it all started with mum and dad way back when I was 3 years old with the first bike. You know, thanks to everybody for that. And hopefully, you know, I know not everybody, but the majority of the people that tune into MXGP TV or wherever they watch, you know, their fix for World Championship, enjoy what I have to say and how I say it. And hopefully I'm enthusiastic and as enthusiastic about doing that as I was as a racer. And so, like I say, I enjoy it. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and hopefully you continue to enjoy it as well. And thanks to you for doing what you're doing, because you're the man at the moment. You're just kind of like snatching everybody that is anybody in terms of like from the last few years, the current crop, the legends of yesteryear and stuff like that. Of course, I don't put myself in that bracket, but you know, you've had some far more legendary people than me. So good job, and hope they've enjoyed it as well, as much as, you know, as what you have, because I'm sure you're loving it really deep down inside, aren't you?
Oh yeah. I'm literally riding the crest of a wave here.
What about your man Vaughan?
Don't want it to stop. Yeah, Vaughan loves it as well.
He's some questions out, isn't he?
Yeah, he loves it. Yeah. I loved it too.
What about you? What's happening in the Speedway world before we go?
I still go to Swindon Robbins Speedway most weeks, but obviously now everything's on hold. Not sure if the season's going to start. that sort of thing. Obviously, they've got Jason Doyle, who was former world champion a couple of years ago. So we've got some top riders there at Swindon, and obviously they won all the league last year and everything and all that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, an old buddy of mine actually, probably your opposition, the old witches, Chris Louis.
Chris Louis,
John
yeah.
Louis just had a birthday a couple of days ago, so obviously happy birthday to him on the other side of the country. But Chris used to ride motocross with us as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Cambridge, Chippenham, Mildenhall, that was his kind of
I
area.
didn't know that. I didn't know
East
that.
Anglia. And his old man John used to bring him to the races and stuff like that. And then when he left schoolboys, moved into the Speedway, won the under-21 World Championship, and
he did really well.
All that. So
British champion.
Yeah. So our circles, literally grass track Speedway circles.
Yeah, and, circled a few times. Yeah, literally.
Circles are closely entwined.
Yeah, they are.
But anyway, cool. No worries.
Really appreciate your time, Paul.
Thank you.
You were a British legend, mate, and I really enjoyed your career. Followed it all the way through. I thought you were outstanding.
No problem. Thank you. And again, thanks to you. Thanks to everybody else tuned in, and hope you enjoy it. And hopefully you're not too bored with this 4-part extravaganza.
We love details. We love the details, Paul.
Yeah. All right. See you all soon.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you very much. Top man. Thank you.